So I'm sneaking a build in mid-afternoon while I've got the time to get it done, so I can get it done. If you left off with this yesterday, it might be working, and my apologies if you are trying to catch me midday or whenever you can. Hoping I find another audience today and maybe see where I get different people coming in from different locations with different time frames. So yesterday I was crimping wires, and I mentioned that you can easily cut them up with these, which once I got in here and started moving things around, that happened. So I'm just gonna redo those, and then I got this stuff Bondic. This stuff's pretty cool. It's like a resin in a tube, and if you do resin printing, you can actually. Oh yeah?
Come here.
All right, I gotta be right back. Okay, I'm back. We've just got excitement going on outside. We got praying mantis. I don't know if anybody else has ever done praying mantis. We've got several egg sacs this year for our garden, and they're really fun once they stick around, which they usually do, and they start getting bigger. They will dominate your garden, and they will devour everything. One summer we were actually feeding them flies after we swatted them with the electric fly swatter, which you gotta get rid of them anyway, so it's kind of keep them as a little pet once they're around because they don't go far. And then mating season happens and everybody starts making love. So if you've never done praying mantis in your yard, I highly suggest it. They're fun for the whole family. So yesterday when I was talking about doing this, I did mention that you just had to be safe, not crunch too hard with your tool because you can easily end up crunching through it, which I did. So we're going to put that Bondix on it, just like some people do with hot glue. You'll see a lot of printers these days with hot glue on it. I think it's a little obnoxious. You don't need that much, and the Bondix will help make it look a little better and cleaner while holding just holding the wires into the connector a little better. And where I was saying before I ran out to see the praying mantis, with the Bondix, it's pretty much just a resin, so if you're resin 3D printing, you should be able to get away with actually using resin in some of the situations like that, and it's more or less resin again. They sell it as just like a hardening resin, and it's hit with the UV light to harden it. And I gotta sneak an eye on this over here. We've got yellow on the left and blue on the right. So I'll get a link up for this later in the description. Pretty cool stuff. Nothing crazy, but it's got the a little light on there, like we would when we're curing our 3D prints from our SLAs. So again, I'm just gonna, just like you would see with all the hot glue, just gonna put it in. Get it too crazy, and we're just gonna hit it. Now, amongst things moving around, we'll end up breaking those connections, and that's pretty much what I ran into yesterday after I pretty much, I guess, set myself up for failure amongst saying, you know, don't grip them too hard, and that's exactly what I did. So actually did want to make that a little smaller than I did, but I'm just going to get a zip tie in. It does need to have some wiggle room. Vladimir, I don't know if you were in from yesterday, but welcome today. And hello from Siberia. Hello from the US, Massachusetts. Thanks for joining me today, if you're still here. If you got any questions, let me know. Questions keep the live feed interesting. Gives me something to talk about. Just like I did yesterday, I'm going to add some terminal connections to our hot end. Keep it nice and fancy. After I do the connection, I usually give it a tug test. Just do the tug test to make sure it's not really coming off or loose. You don't want to rip it off, but it is good to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. Is it possible to buy separately power supply and main board and build an enclosure? So what we're doing right now is kind of that. pretty much. This is the MK5 kit. It's got the Ender 3 is primarily what we've been using for the start of this kit. And yeah, you can buy all these as one-up pieces if you want or need to. Here in the US, we've kind of got a few different options as far as what we have to us as far as buying an Ender 3. So with what we've got, sometimes we've got some people have access to the store. They only really have a few stores available, and that is a micro center, and sometimes they'll run a $99 deal on Ender 3s, which is an insanely great deal. Good price for these units, brand new and usually current with the latest and greatest boards. And so if you can get one of those for that price, that's super great. Being in Siberia, I'm not too sure how much Ender 3s are, but or what you've got for access to get Ender 3 boards, but if you can get on AliExpress, they've got international buying, and you can buy an Ender 3, a brand new Ender 3 board is about $45. You can buy a corresponding LCD that goes with that for about $25. A 24 volt power supply is about $35. And then you would just want to get the Ender 3 head that goes with that for the 24 volt. And that's pretty much all you're using, just those four main components that get you up and running. So if you go to my video channel or even just Recreator3D.com, we've got written manuals that go along with the build videos that are also listed at that website. And the written manual has pretty much everything that you need in order to buy to make this kit. And if you don't have an Ender 3 or have access to an Ender 3 to use as bare bones spare kit, then I also list all the one-up parts that you can buy, as well as the parts that we need to buy extra just for the kit outside of using an Ender 3. So again, all those one-up parts, it's just really, it's cheaper in the end of the day if you can find an Ender 3 used. We also have a lot of used Ender 3s that don't get repaired, that get returned from Amazon, and those make their way on eBay. And you can find those for about $80. And you know, those can be kind of hit or miss. You don't really know what you're getting, so something might not work correctly. But for the most part, the people who do get into those and buy them for repairing, usually it's just a bad bed. A lot of returns happen from a lot of novice printers that don't really know what they're doing for the first time and end up just destroying the beds, or maybe the printer's not properly trammed correctly. So usually everything else in it is pretty good, like the LCD, power, as well as the driver board. So you know, buyer beware if you're trying to get it at that price. In Africa, you know, I've heard that Ender 3s are about $800 to get over there, which is insane to think that the price difference. Sorry, I'm having a really hard time getting this crimping wire in now that I'm talking about how great they are to work with. But yeah, so for Africa, it's really hard to get an Ender 3. It costs a lot. Here in America, it's really cheap. And so I don't know how it is elsewhere. Serbia, sorry. I did say Siberia. thank you for correcting me. I am a little dyslexic, and amongst trying to pay attention to my build as well as chatting, but thank you for allowing me to correct myself there. Sorry if that's offensive or anything. Don't know if you know, Serbia and Siberia, maybe you guys are not friendly with each other. Maybe I'm just making words up. I'm not too sure. But thanks for being here again. Hopefully I answered your question. And if you've got any more, keep them coming. Okay, I'm gonna take a little of my Bondix so I don't set myself up for future failure, and get it on that thermostat connector as well. And this stuff's pretty cool. It's like similar to like a dental, they say a dental sealer, but like I said, it's pretty much just printing resin. If you've got some clear printing resin around, or any kind of color really, just get your UV lamp on it, and same premise. It's pretty cool. Keeps it clean looking. Alright, so I'm good there. And those in. Actually, before I not good here yet, I'm gonna get my LCD on, because then I'll just be back in this again. Like I mentioned, I'd be back in it yesterday. $30,000 RSD for an Ender 3. That is $214 USD. So I would imagine that your one-up parts are going to be probably equal in price. I'm not too sure. You might be able to find one-up parts and be able to do that. Are one-up parts easy to find for you? Maybe through AliExpress or another international buyer? Yes, I did start streaming early today. I had some time to get the build snuck in, and I kind of want to try to finish it by the end of the weekend if possible. So I'm sorry if that's screwing some people up, but I figured we'd maybe give some other people a chance to see what's going on, depending on what people's time frames are, because we're not just in the US anymore, we're kind of global, which is fun. And I had some time to sneak in, so I figured I would. But thanks for being here. If you're able to get here early with me, appreciate that. It's nice to have people coming back. What is good 3D printer to start in 3D world? Recently I just got a Creality Ender 2 Pro, and it's pretty good. It's got all the bells and whistles that you would need in the firmware. I wish it came with a filament runout detector, which it doesn't, which you'd think everything else that they put into it as far as their firmware goes would have been the one thing that really put the icing on the cherry on the ice cream. I was going with that, and it would have been a really top-notch printer. But I'd say it's like a 95%, and it really prints great for me. All my slicer, I don't even change the slicer settings in Cura, just use the generic slicer settings, and that works pretty good. I also like my Kingroo KP3. It's not the new KP3 that's out, it is an older one, but the brand's pretty good. I don't like the external power on the Kingroos. It's my only kickback on that. Those do come out with a filament runout detection, and those two units print the PET really good. The X3S Pro, oh my god, the MK3 Pro, sorry, was from the Xvico X3S, and the X3S is another Ender 3 clone, and so it has some issues here and there depending on your skill set, just like the Ender 3 does, and those are two good printers to get if you're looking to get into 3D printing. You're going to have to tinker a little bit with them, and you're going to have to understand your slicer. So I like to say 3D printing is like driving a car, and you can buy a car just like you can a 3D printer, but you can't just get in a car and drive, and if you crash the car you can't just bring it back to the manufacturer and say I crashed my car because I didn't know how to drive. Well, that's not their fault. So you gotta learn how to drive, and sometimes we don't have driving school for 3D printing, so you really rely on groups, and when you find the groups, some people are more apt to help newcomers and some aren't, so it's good to find the groups that are cool with new questions, and new questions for you are new questions, but they might not be for other people. So it's good to find people who are looking to help. And once you find someone who's willing to help, kind of consider them your guru, or they're your guru. And yeah, so if you're looking for a low maintenance printer and have the money, I would always suggest a Prusa. The Prusa is just a phenomenal printer. I feed it all the time with just the most silly filament that my other printers struggle with, and it never struggles, and it just prints. So the joke is, if the Prusa printer is worth the $1,000 as far as the Kool-Aid goes, but it's a really phenomenal printer. So there's so many printers on the market right now, and a lot of good ones coming out on the market, so it really depends on your price point and what you want, if you want to just print or if you want to tinker a little bit and learn more about printing. The Ender 3 is a good starter printer, and again, it's I mentioned it's kind of like the cockroach of 3D printers. It's going to be around forever. Creality is flooding the market with so many printers that their boards are just going to be in most of those printers. So for the most part, depending on how the firmware is set up, you should be able to use most of the boards. And now that the new boards are pretty much coming standard, those are easily flashed with bin files and an SD card. Just going to try to get my camera to focus a little better on me. There we go. Ultimately, with the bin flashing on the SD card, firmware updates are going to be a lot more easy to create and get them onto boards. So I don't do firmware flashing for the Enders. There is a bin file that we got for the Xvico X3S as well as the Robin Nano, as those two boards are very similar to each other. So we do have bin files that work that out. It's nothing too complicated, and it doesn't really change much, but you know, it's kind of set standard for the actions that we need. Whereas with the Ender 3, we're just kind of temping it to the temp that we need, and then we've got G-code that just starts the spooler. So it's really nothing crazy, but for the older boards like the 1.13 and the 1.14, firmware updates are a little more cumbersome for newcomers. So I really wanted to try to make this not complicated for people, and to just hit the ground running. So not having a firmware need to run the older boards. If someone's got an older Ender 3 or someone's throwing it out and you can reclaim it, just maybe something went wrong with the bed and someone doesn't feel like messing with the bed. This project doesn't need the bed. Rip it off, throw it out, as long as the board and the power is working, as well as a motor and the hot end, you know, and thermostat. That's what we're working with. So. The version 2 is a good printer. You know, they're kind of all the same at this point. They're getting better. The firmware gets better. Sometimes you wonder if what Creality's thinking, just because there's a lot of community firmwares out now that are 10 times better that they could just take from, but for some reason they don't. And I did this yesterday. I have hex tools that end up getting up and walking away. And they get up and walk away because I guess I get up and walk away. So the Prusia Mini, I bought an MK3S around the same time that my buddy Josh got into 3D printing, and I convinced him to get a Prusia Mini. And so afterwards I said, well, you can't just get a Prusia, I gotta get a Prusia. So I got the MK3S. And he wanted the Mini because he wanted something small to get into first time. And you know, for the most part, it's treated him well. I think there are some issues in the extruder gear or extruder head. I'm not sure exactly where the fault leads, but he has had a couple issues here or there, and I don't know if he ever reached out to Prusia or you know, just to see where kind of things were within the community, but he seems to be doing pretty well with it, and he's gotten a lot of different things off of it, so it was really good to see that suggestion worked out. And like anything else, again, it's like driving a car. It took me a while to even get my license because I kept roll stopping at a stop sign, and you know, the cop just kept looking at me like, you don't want your license, do you? Like, you're not understanding a stop sign. So like anything else, if you're not understanding your flow rate, you don't understand your speed limits. And so everybody wants speed. Everybody wants to get their printers to print fast, and some printers just aren't going to. And if you can get them to print fast, but your print's going to look like shit. So it's things to consider, you know. And the more that we've got, you know, that everybody wants the new Bamboo, and that's able to go fast, and it looks beautiful. And even if you took that 4-point nozzle or that 0.4 nozzle on it and put like a 0.6 on it, that speed's going to be insane. So things to consider coming up, but that's also another $1,000 printer. Some people don't have the $1,000 for a printer. And if you do, then you're gonna you want to make sure it's going to work for you. The Prusia, the big Prusia, yeah, everybody wants a big Prusia. You know, it's got like five heads that come off and do its thing. It's got a crazy bed. I wish they made it a little bigger. You know, I know it is bigger, but I wish they made it a little bigger. But it is what it is. It is in U.S. pet bottles taxes free. So sometimes you get taxed a bottle tax. I think for some things, I forget what, but for the most part, redemption you can go and redeem here in Mass, and on the opposite of the U.S. in California is 10 cents. Here in Mass it's 5, and that's only usually for soda bottles. And so we can make some profit, but really it's more cost effective to, and it depends on cost effective and how you want to look at your time. Some people, you know, work 16-hour day jobs, and the thought of even recycling soda bottles into 3D filament is just the last thing that they can even consider using their time to do. There are other people that, you know, it's very effortless for them to convert bottle into a filament based off of their schedule. And then, you know, again, we look at countries and regions, and there's some states in America that, surprisingly enough, don't even have the 5 or 10 cent redemption. They have nothing for recycling, which, to be in America, personally blows my mind that we've got states that don't even care. And then you hear about, you know, like Africa and India, and they're pretty much just swimming in their waste. And now, you know, it's not profitable. If China doesn't want to take import of waste to recycle, because it's just, they can't even handle their own, let alone an import of it. Big businesses aren't making money off of it. It's just, it's not a frugal business. So the for when I first got into this, I went to a redemption center and offered a couple 10 cents for their bottles, you know, instead of 5 cents, and we made a couple exchanges a few times doing that. It was, you know, I was trying to get filament made at that time, so I just needed bottles. They were excited because they were making 5 cents on their 5 cents and didn't have to go to the redemption center. They'd just call me up and say, swing by, and I'd go and I'd get two big trash bags of 2-liter bottles. So there's different methods, I think, that you can do to get soda bottles. I just walked around this morning for recycling day. I got a half a bag of 2-liter bottles and small ones in between. And so, you know, Africa, I think they actually have like headhunters that go around and pick up the bottles, and they bring them back. I think, you know, pet's really big over there as far as clothing. And I think they do have, you know, centers that take in the pet waste, from what I hear, and they clean it up, and then, you know, it's a big thing for people who can actually use it as an industrial product. So if you can, I think you can get upwards to a kilogram of filament for, I think, a nickel, which is, it's insane. So if you can get a roll of filament from your local headhunter in Africa for 5 cents, it's laughable. It's really laughable. And so there's different methods to do it. You know, this is the cheapest and quickest way and easiest way to get filament out of a bottle. And again, you're left with the waste, you're left with the tops and the bottoms. So that's kind of where we're going next, looking into shredding methods as well as extruders that can take in the shreds. You know, that's really where the industry needs to go next. So yes, thank you for playing along in the chat and pushing that concept and everything. So anybody else got any questions, feel free to put them out. I'm gonna go grab a couple more examples, and then we're good for this build so far, coming along. I'm pretty excited. I'm going to be putting it on the spooler mount next, and the sides to finish up the case, and maybe we'll even test it. So I'm pretty excited. Examples. All right, so as everybody can see in the lower left-hand corner, we got Mr. Wexter, and you can check him over at Patreon. But he was so super cool to work with me. I sent him some examples of just, a little superhero I wanted to have as our mascot, just to represent, recreating and getting the idea around just recycling in a different way. And still got to work out Captain Recreator's story. If anybody wants to help me, I think it's just a fun idea to come up with a, an action figure kind of superhero, card, like overpower card, like where you're gonna be playing overpower or whatever, and you know your stats and stuff. So everybody kept hearing the printer printing the other day, and I think it's the first day we don't have a printer printing, maybe at the start of the video. But I was really cool with the gray matte, and just sticking a little white on that really just pops it, keeps it classic. So I'm kind of stoked. I'm just trying to have a couple of these printed up so that I can put some small ones around town with a little QR code on it to bring it back to the project, get people going on that. But primarily I wanted to have some for Earth when I go to Earth, but just got this big one. This is what I was printing the other day on my Sunlu S8. So I'm super stoked to have one this big. And so I really like these models this big. And I know Wexter doesn't really, he really prints these and designs them smaller. But I think they're so cool, big. I grew up, remember these like classic bar style type of statues where they got the big heads and the little bodies. They had all the movie stars, and I remember at my local video station, if anybody remembers renting videos, they would have them in every corner and just along the walls, and it was just always felt just fun and classic. So they're actually a thing, and so it's just, I always thought that his stuff looked like that. So we got the dude. My lights are killing everything over here, but yeah, got the dude from The Big Lebowski, so that's fun. And so again, I'm really appreciative to be able to have a mascot for the Recreator, and that file is available over at Printables.com, so everybody can take a look at that. So again, many thanks to Wexter for that. If y'all want to hit him over at Patreon, he's got a lot of good models that come out, a lot of Star Wars stuff. And everybody knows these models, and just really, really, again, humbled and gracious that he was able to help me out with that and do that for me. It was a really good belated birthday present, so it really made my month. So thank you again for that. If you're around and paying attention, or maybe you saw this and you sneak in, who knows. So let's see, catching up on the chat. Thanks again for keeping the questions coming in. What's the coolest color of bottle that you've managed to turn into filament? I recently sent I've been keeping a little keychain of all the colors. I had about nine or 10 colors, and I sent that to 3D Printing Nerd. So when he gets the Recreator and does a video, hopefully he shows off the color color chain that I had with those. So the coolest color so far, I showed it off yesterday. I think I just moved the bottle. It's one of the coolest colors, but it's blue. This is we're kind of limited in the US with what we've got for colors, unfortunately. This is just a sparkling water, which I'm not too into, so I don't really get them too often, and I don't really see them too often in other people's stuff. But we've got some other watercolor waters that are blue, a little lighter. I see a lot of gray colors coming from EU, and I'm really jealous. They got some reds and some yellows, some different color greens that we don't have, but primarily we've got clear, green, and brown. And so occasionally we'll see the blue. There is like key lime yellow, a key lime juice that comes in a little yellow bottle, and I managed to pull that, and so that's like a creamy butter color. If you go onto the Facebook group, which I've got titled up the top, then you will see a lot of the examples that I've managed to pull. You know, it's different. You can play with different materials. I managed to pull a soap bottle. I went out for recycling day today, and we've got white PET in our creamer for coffee, and so I tried to experiment with that once, and so now that I've got time to play more, I'm going to start to get more into different materials that we can still get out of the recycling bin, and hopefully still be able to manage to cut down. So while we're talking about things, because it's good to talk about things, to have things to talk about. So one of the community members recently showed off like this automated cutter that you can get. It's called the Zip Snip. So the Zip Snip, I'll put up a link for that later. He made a little attachment for the top, and I guess that's a really robust cutter. It was, I think, $40 or so. But you pretty much just put your bottle on there and push the trigger, and it rips it down. So I don't know how good it's going to be for more robust material, but I think he recently showed off cutting a Buttersworth container, which I think are pretty thick. I'd probably say more around I don't know, 0.4 or 5 in thickness. So it was really it cut it like butter. So I'm really excited to try that out. I just got it yesterday in the mail, so maybe I'll do a video on that, show that off a little more. So a lot of people, we don't really got all this filament coming out of this, but I don't really talk about the waste and stuff. But I got one of these bottles. I got one of these buckets just from Home Depot. You can get them anywhere. I chose blue just because it makes me feel like recycling. But we're left with the bottoms. So I got a lot of bottoms, and we're left with the tops. So I got a lot of tops. I got a lot of mistakes. Some bottles, this is a Sprite bottle, some bottles tend to get a little, we got bumps. And so, we talk about blowing these up and hitting them with heat and expanding that so that it's nice and smooth. And, that'll make the bottle cut a little better. You don't necessarily need to do it if your cutter can cut through it. So, it's good to experiment. But like I said, now we've got all this extra stuff. And this is just as bad to put back into your recycling. So for the last year of doing this, I actually have, I don't even know how big it is, but it's pretty much one of your big blue recycling containers, just filled as much as I could pack this up and just keep stuffing it into it. So eventually I will be doing a video showing off what we're going to be doing to shred these down and break these down, with hopes to eventually get them back into an extruder or injection molding, just so that, again, I I've been hanging on to these so that I could have a conscious effort that I'm going to keep shredding them down into more usable filament. If you put these back into your recycling bin, you might as well just go toss them in the trash, because ultimately, if the recycling facility sees it like this or can't find the number 1 on it, it's likely, I haven't confirmed this, but just based off of how everything else seems, it's probably just going to get incinerated. So it's a good thing. Again, like, you know, we're trying to use this material in different methods, and that's part of Recreator. It's not just making filament with the Recreator. It's also about what else can we continue to make with that. And so the more that we can think about our waste in general instead of just waste, you know, as viable product, the better. So I know a lot of what we're doing is manual work. We're cleaning things ourselves. We're taking the labels off ourselves, and that's time, that's effort. And you know, I was just out on recycling day today, and I was like, wow, I really give a lot of props to trash people and to just people who do that for a living. It's very messy. It's just, even some of the bottles I take, some of them I leave. It's like, okay, well, it's free material, but I don't feel like dealing with questionable liquids and cigarette butts. A lot of these are, you know, not to say that people are disgusting, but some of us are disgusting. Our habits aren't the greatest, and so ultimately you got to think too, like, next time you got your mayonnaise jar, don't just throw your mayonnaise jar in the recycling bin. Like, have some courtesy for the people who have to clean that up and actually take it away from you to clean that up. You know that's going to get slammed into a dumpster at the end of the day that someone's still got to maintain. They're going to get, like, you know, mayonnaise juice all over them. So I had that thought this morning, and just, again, thank your trash guys. If you can thank your trash guys, and if you know anybody who's trash man, like, thank you. You know, that they make the world go round. So just remember that. So Wexter's stuff is very reminiscent of the characters that you'd get at the carnival of the state fair. Yeah, you know, like, again, I wish I knew the name off the top of my head as far as what those characters are, but they're very 70s and 80s, I think they came out with, and they were typically at bars that you'd see them, or bowling alleys here in the US. Very classic. There's another person on Instagram that uses peanuts. They're phenomenal, and those are really, really reminiscent of that caricature that we're talking about. Would melting them down and hand forming them into strips rods work? So as far as, I'm not too sure what form you would use the rods for, printing perhaps, but ultimately there are injection molding machines out now for relatively inexpensive costs, around like $300 to $500, that this material shredded up would be perfect to put into injection molding. And so with resin printing now, you can actually resin print a mold for injection molding, and as long as you've got a metal casting to put that resin mold into, I think they've held up for about a couple hundred runs from what I've seen. And so if you can get a cast, an SLA cast for, I don't know, $5 to $10 of material and get 200 runs out of it, that's phenomenal. I mean, you've got home injection molding, and that, just to have a mold made for real, you know, commercialized injection molding can be upwards to $1,000. So now you can do it for $25, and again, use your waste out of your recycling bin. So another thing I want to start getting into once I get into the shredding is shredding up cardboard. A lot of people get pellet stoves just to keep their house heated for the winter. And so what happens, you know, we get all these cardboard that come in from Amazon. I buy a USB stick and they send me a refrigerator box. And so the amount of cardboard that goes around just in our country alone, that that is another recyclable, and I'm sure it gets recycled back into more paper, but probably not as much. And so as consumers in the home, we can think about this stuff and how we can refine it better just to keep within the home. So again, if that cardboard's not leaving the house and you're using it to fuel your heat for the winter, you can collect cardboard all winter or all summer and all year long and just keep your house fueled up just for heat. And that's kind of a just a concept on its own. The electric companies don't want to hear it, and anybody who's got money into it's gonna probably not care about it. And I've been trying to go to soda bottle companies and tell them about this, and no one really seems like, yeah. If they cared enough, they'd be like, wow, this is amazing, like, let's get on it. And for the most part, no one really seems to jump on board. So I've got a cat's crying at me, so I have to check on the cat, so I'll be right back. Can't go outside. You can come live stream. You can come live stream. Tabby wanted the live stream, everybody. See, Tabby? You can be on live stream? So I gotta go give her a treat. But she couldn't get downstairs. Thank you for dealing with me, everybody, and whoever's still here, kicking around, asking me questions. Appreciate you. Any questions, feel free. Again, they keep the stream going. They keep them active and entertaining. Like hot glue gun sticks. So I've seen some people take PLA and make sticks that are the size for a hot glue gun, and it does seem to work. I think they actually made them notched too, so that the glue gun had a notch to be able to bring the stick down a little better. So I don't think a hot glue gun will get to melting point for PET, or for PET though. Its melting point is going to be, you got to get it up to at least the 260, 255 should break it, but 260 is best. Ultimately, I don't think a hot glue gun, unless you've got a very high temp hot glue gun, it probably won't work with the standard one. You made it. Broken Illusion, you're here. So we're just going to be putting on the sides. That's kind of where I'm at this point. Now that my cat is downstairs and has a treat. So it took me a little time to get here. Thought I'd be done. But it's all right. We got stuff to talk about. It's good to talk and build. If I got a Voron, and how would y'all wanna? Do you wanna watch me build a Voron? I'm not too into kits now that I've been making my own kit, but I hear the Vorons are pretty fun. 3D printing nerd, do video about 3D Evo filament maker. So I have seen some videos from 3D printing nerd with varying extruder apparatuses, and some of them seem to work, and then afterwards he said they were pretty problematic. And yeah, you know, those they seem like they're a good option, but they're going to be, you know, within the couple $1,000 range. So I really want to be able to try to get prices. I can't get prices down. I wish I could get prices down for everybody's stuff and make it free and cheap for the world. But so if the industry can start to focus on, you know, less expensive ways for us to be able to, you know, shred and injection mold as well as make our own filament, you know, it's still pretty cost effective to do all that stuff. So not the average person's going to end up doing it. If it costs anywhere over $1,000, it really puts it out of the average person's hands. Yes, get a Voron. Yeah, I'm thinking about getting a Voron, and you know, it's been having fun doing the live feed with some chat going on, giving me something to talk about. It's been fun. So yeah, if I can get a Voron, I'll try to make a couple of videos out of it and see where that goes. Is anybody looking for a place to get a Voron? I don't know, you know, how easy it is to get Vorons, but I got a spot to get a Voron kit that I'm happy with, and so I wanted to help her out. So I might get one. I think it'd be fun. I'm not too into kits these days, but it looked like a fun kit. I put my Prusia together as a kit. Took me a while, longer than it should have, but it was fun. It taught me a lot. Vorons are so expensive to source. As like one-ups, I mean, I pretty much have the option to get a kit. And it wasn't too bad. I think it was around 500 for the larger one. I think they had a baby one for maybe like 250 as a complete kit. So it's pretty good once you're getting a complete kit. I think you still maybe had to print some of the parts, but I believe that's the whole point of a Voron. So I still haven't jumped into the deep end of the Voron pool. I've only really stuck my pinky toe in, and the water's cold. So if people think a Voron would be cool for a build, I think, like I said, I think I might try to get one. The Ender 5 Plus, I just got rid of an Ender 5 Plus. It killed my soul. It cost so much money to run it, and it wasn't even any better than my Sunlu S8s. A little bit bigger on the build volume, but I got a CR10S5 that I don't even use, so I don't really need to get much bigger than the 3.3. The 300 by 300 by 400. It's kind of standard these days. Are there a lot of Voron kits now? The vendor that I know, that she sells 3 variances of the Voron kit, and it looked like a mini, a medium, and a large. I think I have the option of getting a 350, but I'm not sure. So I don't know. I think 300 by 300 by 400 is pretty standard these days. I'd like to see most printers actually going in that size as far as standardizing the size. Obviously the Ender 3, just like a 250 by 250 by 300, you know, is also a decent size. You know, unless you're doing like cosplay and stuff, you know, like this was just on the S-Lu, the Sunlu S8, and you know, this is a good size model. It's I'd say it's about 300 millimeters tall. I wouldn't expect most users to be printing anything really that big. It took almost 3 days to print, and unless you're cool with leaving your printer home alone like you would, you know, a crazy child, that's kind of how a 3D printer could be at any given point. Could just cause a bunch of chaos and set your house on fire. And that's why people want them safe, and you know, I think trying to make them smarter is not really the best idea, because it's just gonna, I think, kind of leave more room for error, especially if any of those things that catch issues like that fault out on their own. I'd really like to see Creality stop making printers for a little while. I know I'm endorsing the Ender 3 as far as this build goes, and maybe that won't be the case moving forward if we can start to get more easier parts to put into it. I don't know what my future will bring, but you know, for now I'll endorse the Ender 3 because it's kind of the easiest and most obtainable. I think we're going to start to see the whole industry as far as pet pultrusion kind of go down its own path of changing, and not necessarily relying on 3D printed parts. This project, again, uses 3D printers because I would like to see them not turn into more waste. So they're just going to be e-waste eventually, which will probably find its way to Africa through some varying forms at some point, and they're just going to set it on fire and kill themselves early. So I don't like to hear stuff like that. We don't need other countries to take care of waste and then just have issues with their own health and stuff trying to get rid of it. So we don't need any of that. I want to just scoot that foot over a little. I think I can. You know, it's like China doesn't want anything to do with it because they're just making more waste and more pollution for themselves. And why? I mean, you got to worry about you and yours at that point, and they're kind of, you know, it's not even, if it's not making money and it's only hurting things over there, and it costs more money to make a solution. And it's nice. I think the soda bottle companies here in the US just started to make a campaign. And you know, if you're part of the problem, it's good to be part of the solution. So I am just a little snug on this foot. I don't think I'm gonna get it kicked out for myself. So I just realized I didn't really send this out, so I'm probably only seeing people from YouTube right now, which is still fun, but just going to send out a quick invite to Facebook and Twitter. People care to join us from there. It's always fun. But yeah, this has been pretty cool, just having random people come in and send me some chat requests just as far as topics go. Gives me something to talk about while I'm working on this. We got 4 current viewers right now, which is fun, you know. Appreciate anybody that comes in for the amount of time they come in at. Just even if they're dropping a quick question for me to talk about, they come back later. And if they don't, then at least I got a good question out of them. what you think about 3D printer that you can fold and put in a filament box. So I've seen that. I think it's pretty cool as far as what the creator did to revision it so many times, and I can see it being a niche in its own marketable way. I think for people who travel and they're trying to keep something light and portable in their backpack or briefcase, it's very smart to have it in the size of a spool box, because then you can have your spool box with your spool of filament and your 3D printer, and it's not much bigger than a 12 by 12 by 12 ratio. That's even smart for printing or for shipping. So as far as shipping a printer goes, instead of having something that would probably cost $35 to $65 to ship out, it will probably be, you know, $10 to $25 to ship out now. So a lot of thought went into it, I think, as far as just where else it's going to end up going after the fact and who it's going to be marketed to. Do I want a printer that's printing upside down? That's kind of gimmicky, and yes, you can see the first layer fine for the top of it, but just as far as working to get at it afterwards, I think the bed plate was removable, but it's like anything else. It's like I said, it's a niche. It's got its gimmick. I wouldn't pay more than a couple $100 for it. So if it was anything more than $300, I would consider why you need it, and exactly if it's going to fill that niche for yourself. Are you trying to be portable? Are you trying to be light? And do you do the occasional printing? As well as, do you like to have something look cooler than the next kid down the street? So that's my opinion on that. So yeah, I like new concepts. Again, it's kind of niche. It's just like this. This is a niche thing that you're either into it or you're not. So it will have, like anything else, the people that are like, wow, that's super cool, and then there will people that are like, why would I even waste my time? I really thought that unit did bring in a lot of new things. Maybe not new, but different things that you don't see. Had a pulley system in there instead of belts. It's this like almost like a thin rope that actually has, you know, strands around it for pulling. I thought that was really new and innovative that I've not seen before. So don't get me wrong, it's probably a good printer, but again, you got to find kind of what works for you and your own lifestyles and your own needs. So, 3D printer pens, that's kind of how I got into PET. I found a pen that actually took PET strips. And now knowing more about PET and printing with PET, it's kind of scary to think it never came to market. And I would say that it probably never came to market because the average pen for 3D printing doesn't go above 230, 220. I think mine only goes to 210, and I'm pretty sure they don't go above 230 if there's any that goes to that temp. And so you got to think that holding a pen that gets upwards to 260, they're marketing it to kids. They had a little cutter, just like our community cutter, but it was in the shape of like a caterpillar. And it was really cool. It really intrigued me enough to want to get into this, and that I kind of went down a rabbit hole trying to find the creator of that, and just to see why. And I think it ended up getting acquired by another company, and then another company acquired that company. And at that point, once you've been acquired 3 or 4 times, if you had someone's pet project that was kind of maybe marketable, somebody who was on the top end ended up going 260 degrees in a kid's hand. Are you fucking nuts? Throw that out. And whether that happened or not, that's, you know, in my head, that's what happened. Some R&D person was just like, we can't market this. This is like, you know, giving hot molten plastic to 5-year-olds. The average person here in America would get their kids that for Christmas, and then the next day be suing the company for scolding their kids with hot plastic from their trash. So same concept with the Recreator. You know, I got this hot end here. I wanted to make sure this one's going to be going to a school, so I wanted to make sure that our shroud says hot on it and it's red. And so my first build that I did for myself, I did the paint on it with hot tamales. And so I really like having the shroud on here because you can actually put your arm on here, you know, not for a long time, but if you graze it, you're not gonna hit all the hot end components. So while this is running, even if you're just kind of in between and working on it, you can know, like, the plate gets hot below it, but you're likely gonna hit that shroud first with your arm or your hand or anything in between, enough to know, like, wow, this is hot. Get my hand away from it. It's gonna give you enough time to get away from it. On other units that I've seen, they scare me, and you know, one of my main things, especially with using other units and building my own throughout the year, is as much as I can be safe and have the unit be safe, I wanted to practice that. So I really enjoyed putting the original plate and everything back into use as it was just on the 3D printer for this project, again, for mainly the safety aspect of it. So yes, you know, a lot of people can just use the hot end and mount it to a plate and have it just be like that, and that works just as fine. But again, I wanted to just have mine be a little more robust and just easy to use, just as it is when you buy it. You just drill a hole in it otherwise and stick it onto my printed plate and you're good to go. So you can use all the original bolts and screws and nuts that come with it. It's really great. Let's see if I can catch up and the chat as well as move forward with the build, so I'm not just being all ADHD all over the chat. So yeah, it's 9:22 p.m. for you. I'm glad that you're able to see me before you go to bed. I think it's about 3 o'clock or so here in Massachusetts in the US. So again, I appreciate you being here. Ben Heck do similar things. I really like Ben Heck. I think he was going to be going to Murph, but he just said that he's not going to Murph. And if you're going to Murph this weekend, check out the Recreator. We got Gary who's going to be there showing off a demo of the Recreator. Unfortunately, I can't be there, but Gary's a new member at the Facebook group, and he's nice enough to be there with his son, and they're going to be demoing a couple units, probably over at the LDO Motors table, who has been nice enough to invite us to be at their table. So really excited and thankful for Jason over at LDO Motors for allowing that opportunity, as well over at ERF, which I will probably be attending. So maybe Ben Heck will be there and I can meet Ben Heck, because he's been, you know, a game changer as far as handhelds, portables go for video games. He's been in the electronic game for a while now, and so he goes back. I remember seeing some of his handhelds that have inspired me to make my own Raspberry Pis and handhelds and stuff like that, so it's fun. It's good to have people around in a good community. Alright, so I've got pretty much, I can mount this on here just for fun, and that'll help look a little more finished amongst my rambling. So I think a lot of people are just getting their bearings together for this week to get to Murph, for people who are going there. It looks super happy and exciting. So this is the latest and greatest community bottle cutter, and I waited the longest to get these retractable wands from the Dollar Tree, and they work super great for just being portable on the MK5. On the MK3 Pro, we used the lead screws and some mounts on the side, so you could just put your lead screw back onto the mounts, which kept it portable. Fortunately, the lead screw didn't really work on the MK5 unit, and in general, I wanted to be able to make the community bottle cutter able to ship easy and keep it hands, portable in your one hand or pocket, or maybe a cargo pocket. But ultimately, again, I wanted to make it so that it's portable. You can just put it in here, bring your bottle on. Once your bottle's done and you gotta go, you can go. So that was a really nice aspect that I'm glad that I could incorporate into this. So we got 3 concurrent viewers currently. If any y'all have any questions for me to keep the conversation going, that would be appreciated. So before I kind of get all that going, let's see how everybody was complaining. Not everybody, but I had a couple complaints about getting the case and the T-nut in place. So I'm just going to do these real quick. And slip some T-nuts in there. Alright, so I know I probably have to revise this at some point just for everybody's sanity. But what I've been doing is just kind of sliding those around as much as I can, and then finding that with the hex tool, and then dropping the screw on with the handle and getting the first T-nut in place. If you catch it just right, which hopefully I did. I don't think I did. And I lost it. All right. Be right back. Alright. So, I'm just going to that one down and do the same thing with this other nut. And again, just shake it enough where you can move it into place. It's a little puzzly. I think I missed the screw. So I will definitely, this is the third kit I've made. And again, no one's really said anything, so I've just kind of probably get frustrated myself doing this. No one's really told me if they're frustrated doing it. But I know why I'd have to more or less do a revision on the case. So at the time of releasing this, I was pretty tired and everybody was just looking for it. So I think I said I'll leave that for a rainy day. So I think coming up, maybe I'll rework that. I know a couple people in the user group have mentioned that they wanted to try to help and revise things a little, which I am perfectly happy to have people helping with. But like I said, I love a good handle, because now you can hang on to that handle and you can lift it up with my head. You can grab it this way and lose your bracket rod. Hang it on this way, grab it this way, go back this way. It's pretty fun. I like my handles. So the handles are good for, you know, pulling the filament too if you need to hang on to it for grip. I think it's dinner time for my kitten because she's yelling at me from the other room. So I'm gonna go feed her real quick with some cereal and then I'll be back in a minute. Our kitten's not a kitten anymore, but she's our last one out of 4 that we had, and she's getting old, and I don't want to say anything about what she might be going through, but just trying to keep her head fed and happy, so she can distract me all she wants as far as I'm concerned. Looks like a radio antenna. The Recreator looks like a radio antenna. Oh, the retractable thing. It's a magnet. It's a retractable magnet wand. So yeah, similar to an antenna, but just really good for this as far as keeping it portable. So this is pretty exciting. We're at about an hour and a half, and usually these take me about an hour and a half when I'm actually working on them personally. But amongst juggling the chat and just trying to have fun with that, it's just kind of like a casual Q&A build. A lot of group members have been encouraging me to just do a live feed, so we're doing live feeds. It's been kind of fun just interacting with everybody and getting different perspectives and ideas of what people are doing and how they're doing it. So Vladimir, you got any more questions? What do you got going on these days? You doing any builds? You working on a Recreator? Or just thinking about working on one? Trying to put this on, I gotta get our gear on. So I recently did a revision to our back MK5 spooler. So for the time being, if you've already printed it, you might have noticed that this wheel is loose once you get it into it. So if you just put a piece of tape, just one piece of masking tape around, once you fit it into the hole on the bracket here, it's going to snugly fit into place. And so on the revision, I pretty much put a lip on the back so that that wheel can't come out or move beyond the screw mounts. And the screw mounts have also been recessed. Depending on what screw you're using, it shouldn't matter because now it'll be recessed and this gear shouldn't catch any of the screws that are in there if by chance it does move backwards. But once it's in there, you pretty much don't want it to catch on the screws for the motor mount. And as long as it's snug and tight, you should be good. Some people said that it was loose, and that's why we did a revision. But you don't need to reprint anything as far as that revision goes. If you're already recreating, then just continue recreating. If you do by chance have an MK3 Lite with just a single motor, I would suggest upgrading to the MK5 spooler motor with the dual gear. We're just using one motor, but compared to the MK3 Lite version of it, it's 3 times more robust than that. So it's twice as robust as the MK3 Pro. So another thing to point out that some people have noticed, they feel like the motor's either getting hot or there's tightness in their pull. These nuts shouldn't be tight. This shouldn't be super tight to the point where it's locked in. You should have these at least a little loose so that your core spins by itself. You don't want it completely loose where it's going to fall apart, but you don't want it completely tight where it's going to bind. So a little loose is key. gonna plug in my motor while we're working on it. And I'm just gonna push the blower back a little. Probably the whole extruder mount. So again, this is why I like using the 2040 profile rails, is anytime you need to move anything, you can just take it off and move it. A lot of other people are just using pieces of wood, which, you know, gets the job done, but it's not necessarily the cleanest. And once you got holes drilled, you've got holes drilled. So you got to kind of figure what you're doing and mount it and keep it there. With the 2040 profiles, if you want to come up with a mod later down the road, you can easily change things out and update it. All right, so we're looking pretty good. Gonna turn it on and test it. Hopefully everything's working there. I did buy some units personally from eBay that did not work the best for me. I think this one was a good one, so we'll find out. All right. I use a double-sided tape. It's not a foam tape. It's just it's usually made for framing and mats. We make a couple variants of it where some is easily removable, and then some that are not removable. Any kind of double-sided tape that you know sticks stuff down is suggested. And this is just my front signage for the unit. Seen some people not use the front signage, which is fine. You don't need to, I guess. But I appreciate it if you do, because it helps bring more attention to the project, and the signage just helps people know where to go. And we got the QR code on there, so if anybody sees your machine, they can just QR code the machine and it will bring them right to the website for further information. So that just goes on here. One thing out of the entire machine that impressed my father was the signage. He didn't care about anything else. But damn, those signs look good. So, if you print the signs, you make my dad happy. Actually thinks I did something, you know, like make a sign. But I am rather impressed with the signs. It's nice. It really finishes it off. I think if you're proud of what you've made, it's good to represent it. Stick your name on something. Nothing about being ego, but it's good to have a brand. It's good to get it out there, and it's something that people talk about, where you can reduce, reuse, and recreate with the Recreator3D.com. So if you haven't been to the website, I have recently redone it. It's looking pretty good. I've got a friend who wants to further get it over to another server, which should help with the traffic flow. I think we've had some issues with just flow, and the popularity of the project has brought in a lot of traffic, so I've been getting emails about that from my web provider, telling me I'm a little more popular than a free website allows for. So if you're having any issues with that, you can head over to the Facebook group, which is also listed at the top of this page. And we got some files over there. I got files on Discord. So if you can't get onto the website, you can get on Discord, and if you can't get there or on the website, we've got them over on Printables.com as well as Thingiverse.com. So you've got options to find the Recreator 3D MK5 kit. If you want to check out other things for recycling, like I mentioned, I wanted to do kind of recycling cardboard into fuel for your home. You can check out Recycle3D.xyz. That is also a Facebook group. Again, that's Recycled3D.xyz. And we talk about alternative recycling methods, not just for 3D printing, but for beyond. And just ways that we can bring 3D printing back into our recycling. Back into our home, and what we can use our waste to do different things with. So check us out there for a fun alternative to different talking points. So we're looking pretty good. Last thing I've been doing is any build that I make, I personally sign and date and give it a build number. So this is build number 23. This is the third MK5 kit that I've built. And it's been themed for the school that it's going to be going to. Before I put the sticker on, I just want to rough up the back of the spot that I'm going to put it on. Usually on the MK3 Pros, this would go on the bottom, but I don't really have room on the bottom because we've got our air holes for breathing. So I'm just doing this so that the sticker has something to grip to. Okay. All right. So usually once I test it, I will print up a little keychain that we've made, Recreator3D.com, with the #1 emblem on it. And so once I get this up and running, I test it 3 times, and then 2 of those pulls go to the customer for testing the filament, so that they can actually test the filament before they get to their own. And it also lets them know that what to expect out of their machine as far as quality. And the 3rd one of those filaments gets put into my KP3 Kangaroo and tested to make sure that that filament is actually being pulled and can be printed correctly. That then gets printed as one of these and included with the Recreator, so that you know what to expect out of your machine. So I don't like to have anything that I build personally go off to anybody where it's not coming out of the box with too many issues to just put together. For the most part, once this comes out of the box as a MK5 kit comes out of the box, I don't really have a box established for it. I've only shipped out one of these. It's something that I've got to look into if I personally continue to make these. But again, there are very many things in play since last week, beyond things I thought were imaginable. And so I'm just rolling with things. And so I think I'm going to try to get a power connected to this, and we'll turn her on, see if she works, and pull some PET. Alright, that was already on, but we're on. We're working. She's working. She's looking good. What do y'all think? Turned out pretty cool, huh? It's got that red theme going on. You know she's hot. So I think it's looking good. I don't know what I got in for our G code, so let's load that up real quick. And my fat fingers. My fat fingers need a little help to get this SD card out. Okay. Let's just get this in real quick. Looks like some old G code that I don't want. Just download a new one because I just updated my computer. Okay. How's this chat going, guys? I haven't seen you. We got 9:22 p.m. Got you there, antenna. Is that printed in 2 colors? So it's got 2 colors going on for a theme. It wasn't printed with a 2-color printer. The signage was printed with just a layer change. So we just pause it at the layer that we want, and it pretty much wants new filament at that change. So we just unload the filament and put in new filament, and we get a 2-layer signage. It's really nice. Okay, we're on. We got that loaded. Uh-oh. Pushing buttons. Ha! No, we can't get the damn thing going. Alright. Okay. We're good. Alright, so let's just make sure it goes to temp. We're going to go to control and temperature and to our nozzle. And the 1.13 is an interesting board with an interesting firmware. Everything's really big on it. There's a part of me that really wants to suggest that you get a 1.13 just because the screen size seems a little bigger with text. So if you were looking for options, I'm not too sure how popular the 1.13 board is. I also don't know if the firmware is set up properly for thermal runaway, so I don't necessarily want to suggest that. I could just unhook this at the moment and see. I would then have to open this back up and everything, so like I mentioned, it is going to a school later, so I probably will double check on that and maybe change the board out to another current one just so I know it's safe for the kiddos. But there's things to consider, you know, when you start to work on this and you're going through alternative build methods to think about. But let's get a bottle and see it in action. Alright, so I'm going to use this brown bottle because it's a nice color. We don't really have a lot of brown bottles, and it should allow for the camera to see it really good, being brown. I got one last thing to print for this, which is a bottle weight. So I'm just going to snag it from another unit. To get that pull up to the main bottom, and I like the precision scissors, really help me kind of pierce the bottle. And so we're going to take that much off. We're usually left with you know, a lot of people lately seem like they are a little bothered by just how much they might be trimming off the bottom. But I usually just use the line that most soda bottles have on the base as a guide, and so I'm usually cutting about that much off to make my bottom straight, and so we're left with that much. So again, if you're blowing these up, you might be able to expand that base out and get a little more strip out of that, but you're always going to end up with at least some bottom. I need two more things. So let's see if I can move that out of my head. Still keep this there. Once we thread the thread that we're going to cut out of this and put it through the nozzle, I'm going to use a binder clip to hold it in place before we heat it up. And so that's a little tip and trick that I gotta try to get out into the Recreator universe for everybody if they're still having problems loading. So I'll usually cut about 4 or 5 inches of a strip from the bottom of the bottle, just like this. And I'll get it onto my bottle cutter and get it loaded into my bottle cutter. And from there I take the weight and I put the weight down. I'll usually take off the guide just so that I've got space in here to work with. And you pretty much just pull forward, keeping in mind to be safe while you do it. I'm already having cutting issues for some reason, so I'm just going to tighten my screw down, make sure that's good. Alright, so cutting good. I'll usually bring the bottle out in the strip a little ways, maybe about a foot, and I inspect that first length of strip, and I make sure that there's no real weirdness going on. For the most part, you could pull this because it does look like a good strip, and we'd be taking that much out as more waste just because it could be usually gets pulled pretty rough amongst the initial pull. So I'm actually just going to use it because it looks pretty good, but normally if you had a cut, a good cut in here from the initial cut, you'd want to cut that off and not even use it, because any kind of sheared strips within your strip can easily break off at the nozzle. So this is looking pretty good for how I cut it. So we're just going to further refine our strip initially into about, you can go to about 2 to 3 inches. But you want to get it thin enough to be able to thread it into the 1.75 millimeter diameter of your nozzle. So I'll usually go with something like that. You can see it. Nothing too crazy. Again, you just want to be able to get it into the nozzle. I'll usually straighten it out as best as I can. And it goes, for me at this point, it goes right into the nozzle. You might still need to experiment and learn and kind of get your own feeling. But at this point, I'll put the paper clip on it. And when it heats up, it's going to expand the material and kick back. So that's why we put the paper clip on it. So I'm just going to go to control, temperature, nozzle. Nothing too crazy. We're going to bring it to 210. And then I can go back to my controller and my main and my info screen, and we can watch the temperature rise. At this point, I can take my guide key and put the filament back into that and put it back on. You don't really need the guide key, but it does just help keep everything nice and straight and tensioned. So for a fun desktop novelty, they sell these at the Dollar Tree here in America. I don't know if you can get them anywhere else, but just every time I get a little part of these doodads off the bottom, I just stick it in my desktop recycling bin, which has gotten pretty full. Just like my standard recycling bin has become. So I think one of the things, if you're going to be doing this and you do have the space to do it and you will be further refining your waste, it's good to save it and invest in. I think my barrel ended up costing me $35, but it's managed to keep all my waste tidy and managed for the last year. Now that I've been able to get the shredder, I can focus on shredding all that waste now. So I hope to refine it, and then maybe if I don't start doing stuff with it right away, I can get it into other people's hands so that they can work with it. So if you're here and you're watching and you've got any questions for me, feel free to let me know. Hit me up in the chat and I can talk about things. So right now we're just waiting for the Recreator to get to temp. We've just put it together. The last couple days I've done some live feed. I think the first day's live stream was an hour and 20 minutes. Then we hit an hour and 40 minutes, and it looks like we're going to be going on 2 hours today. So usually the build takes me about an hour and a half once I've got everything kind of worked out and plotted. I think for the average person it's probably going to be about a 2 to a 3 hour build, maybe a little longer for someone brand new, but it's a good project to take your time on, and if you've got spare parts they go together pretty easily. I don't think it's a horrible build, and so far I know of one person who joined the group who has never touched a 3D printer in their life. They mentioned that they got a 3D printer, 2 of them. One went together to start 3D printing the parts to make a Recreator, and the other one was gutted for a Recreator. And I think they said within the week of 3D printing the parts for the first time, 3D printing, they managed to have a Recreator built within that same time span, which is phenomenal. I can't even fathom it. So I was really impressed with hearing that, and it really tickled me. So really humbled to that, and know that for the most part, I got all the directions and instructions I've got out. I don't really have photos out, which I will always wanted to try to do more after I got the videos out. But the videos were always priority, so that people had actually visuals, video to go with the text. And I understand that photos are a little more universal than video, so those will eventually likely happen. So we're at 170. The Ender 3 1.13 board does seem to take a little longer to temp out, and actually I'm now noticing why, because our fans are hooked up. So I know I didn't want to get back in here, but it looks like I might have to. And I don't know how I managed to do that. I think maybe I just wasn't thinking, and again this needs to be always on, which, let's make sure it's spinning. Sometimes I can't feel these, but yeah, this shouldn't be spinning, so we gotta swap those around, because this is just gonna stay at 170 with that main fan blowing. So again, it's not necessarily a main fan like your 3D printer would be. We want this fan to never really be on while we're pulling. It's primarily just there to help reduce the heat once you have finished pulling and you want to just load it back up real fast and kind of get it pulling again. So unfortunately I have to take this off and unmount the bottle. Shouldn't be too bad. Just restring that in later. waste it. Take that off real quick, and we're going to go back inside the unit. So we'll unplug it and swap those around. So if you are just joining us and you don't really know me from the build project, I do tend to get reversed a lot, and so I made sure that the instructions were as diligent as I could. And so once you've got this built, you kind of just want it built. I do have to come up, I think, with a new method to get the back handle on if you're using it, which again, you don't need to use it, but amongst being able to now get into here to just fix my little mistake that I made. Again, if you don't want to use the fans, also you don't need to use the fans, they're just an extra. As I mentioned, the main fan will just cool the block down amongst putting in a new strip for the next pull, and the blower fan is just keeping the filament cool at this spot before it goes to the spooler, and neither are truly needed. So if you felt like you're going to be getting into the case a lot for whatever reason, which once it's built you shouldn't have to, so you might want to just test out everything before you finish it up, so you're not being like me right now. Not super embarrassing, but like anything else, I don't want to be coming back in here, so we're gonna just take this off real quick. And I wanted to make these as easy as possible for people, so again, we're just gonna undo this a little so I can turn it. And then I can get that off. Make sure the front's undone. And we're back inside. So I'm just going to take the spooler off real quick so it can sit properly. And I'm going to use this that quick. And that work I did earlier, I'm going to just have to redo. Again, ultimately we want always on fan to be our blower fan. So if you don't know me, I hate doing extra work, and I always end up doing extra work, so it's always good to double check, just like if you're gonna measure twice and cut once is the rule, but I tend to end up having to measure a bunch of times and cut a bunch of times, and so with builds sometimes I get confused and end up having to come back a bunch of times. So where we're at right now, just everything else I've done so far, I think I've managed to reverse everything amongst trying to stay focused on the build and talk to people. So no one's really here right now. We got 3 viewers. No one's really chatting to me. So if you're watching me, talk to me. Tell me what's up. Tell me where you're at. Are you recreating? Will you be recreating? Where are you from? What are you doing? Is it lunchtime? Is it dinner time? Is it raining? Is it pouring? Is your old man snoring? So we're going on 2 hours. Love to get this wrapped up and tested before I finish up for the feed. So maybe we'll try to shoot for 2 hours and 30 minutes. Seems a little longer of a time than I wanted to be working on this today. I know my dinner time is coming up soon and I'd like to eat. So it gives me some motivation. Alright, so again, we're going to be think for a minute. And yellow is red. Alright, so we got our yellow is red. Double check this out real quick. Red. Okay. Okay, so there, good. Get these crimped back up and get back to testing so I can have some dinner. $10:24. You must be a night owl. It's about my bedtime. So again, we just want to kiss those crimps. We don't want to kill them. Very easy to overdo it, and I think I might actually be using a bigger crimper than I should be for this size. Like I said before, use what you got. Don't buy anything you can't afford, especially if you're not going to use it. Red is that way, and that way, and there, and again with that Bondix. Just to keep those wires good. And what I should have done the first time, we'll plug it in, make sure the fans are running for how they need to be running. Alright, that's not running. We're good. And we're running. Alright, we're good. So I think everything that I could have put on backwards throughout this entire build, I put on backwards. So, hopefully everybody else is having an alright time. Haven't really heard from anybody that they're having a horrible time. But on my third build, it's good to have some reflections, right? So, I think we'll be revising a few things moving forward. Just get on here without breaking anything. It's always good to reflect on things. I don't think anything's ever truly done. Just takes a break sometimes. So we gotta get that nut back in here before we get too crazy. So I can get it back on the handle. And we're just gonna try to get it right back into place without driving myself too crazy. Okay, looking good. That was not too bad. Quick fix. Let's get these screws back on. Good. Oh, we got a bunch of text going on over here in the chat. I don't want to love to cheap fuck therein. You can go bye-bye. And I think we gotta put this humor in timeout. Alright, sorry about that, people in the live chat. I'm not used to being on YouTube live chat, and I was expecting that to pop up eventually. That's usually how things work out on the comments. Get some stupid bot looking to give me porn. And maybe they found us because they're also an xyz.com or URL. But we took care of that, and try to have a moderator in if I can amongst getting a little more popular if we do. But we're back up here, we're running, we're looking good. That back on. Alright, now we should be able to get to 210 relatively fast and easy. Our blower fan is blowing. Our main fan is not. Pretty happy. Been trying to get this build done for the last couple weeks, so I appreciate everybody being here with me who helped me along with that. Sorry if things got turned upside down and reversed, but we're looking good so far. We got the SD card loaded up with the latest dual geared MK5 spooler G codes. And we got 3 viewers. Anybody else looking to get the chat going? Other than some porn bots that are spamming me currently, so otherwise, not sure what to talk about right now. So the community cutter, you know, that's been coming along, and I'm happy to hear Russia is maybe coming back from Ukraine a little. But Ukraine is where the plastic bottle and can cutter.com comes from, and that's what I initially was using for a bottle cutter in the MK3 Pro and Lite units. And eventually, once the war started happening, they stopped selling them due to everything over there, and they just recently started selling them again. So that made me feel a little good for them as far as if the conflict is over, but at least they can get their business back up and running. It gives people an option to buy a nice custom made bottle cutter from a mom and pop company, and gave me the opportunity to work on the community bottle cutter, which is available for people who might want to make their own, or if the Ukraine is not necessarily the fast shipping option. It does take about 5 to 7 weeks or so, maybe not that long, I'd say about 5 weeks to get something like that shipped over to the US. But I'm just glad that they are back up and operating, and I supported them at the beginning with this project because they were pretty much out of 5 commercial bottle cutters that are available on the market, primarily through eBay and Amazon. They were the only cutter that actually kept cutting and nicely, and it's safe. Uses the bearings just like the community bottle cutter, and it's not using like a razor blade or anything sharp like that, so it's really nice and safe for kids to use. Yeah, so I'm happy to welcome them back into allowing sales back open. So thanks for doing that, plasticbottleandcancutter.com. And we're at temp, so I'm going to take my needle nose pliers, and we're going to pull the strand forward. And for the most part, it should, you know, I got some tension, I got some mild tension on it going on, trying to pull that forward. And it should relatively not give you a huge pain pulling it. If it is, you want to consider the size of your nozzle compared to the size of the strand and thickness of the bottle that you're pulling. So the golden ratio of pulling a standard bottle, most standard bottles are about 0.30 millimeters in thickness, and that's going to translate to about a 8 millimeter strip that you want to cut down, and that should be able to easily go through a 1.75 millimeter nozzle and form that size film. So I'm kind of trying to do this one-handed-ish as well as show it to you. So usually I bring it a couple inches beyond the spooler and I'll usually cut the end off a little, and then we're just going to put it into one of our holes on our spooler and just push the filament down, and that's going to lock into place. Don't got to do anything too crazy. If you wanted to make a noose where you can attach it to the filament sooner at the nozzle so that you're not wasting as much filament, you can do that too, but this works just as good. So now we just need to run our G code. We're going to print from the SD card, and for the most part for the MK5 kit dual gear spooler, we're going to be doing the 600, which is our medium speed, and you can do upwards to 900, but I wouldn't go beyond that if you're going to make your custom firmware. And if you are struggling with that pull at 900, definitely drop it back down to 600. And we're off. Alright. Again, I'm pretty happy with how this build went. It took me a little longer than it should have. So if you have joined me in on the live chats, the live video feed while we've done this, again, I think overall it took me, let's see, the first two videos combined would be about 3 hours, and we're on 2.5 hours now. So a little longer than I would have initially liked it, but I'm pretty happy that everybody's been able to join me for my first live feeds through Recreator3D.com, endorsed by JRT3D.com. So if you've not checked me out at JRT3D.com, I try to get all my other projects listed. I also run a group on Facebook at JRT3D.com, or JRT3D rather, and I just post memes and other fun things that are happening in the recycling, as well as what I'm up to. And so, you know, if you like 3D printing and video games and recycling, then join my group at JRT3D. And yeah, we got JRT3D.com, we got Recycle3D.xyz, and again, that's got alternative recycling methods that you can check out besides just the Recreator3D.com. And the Recreator3D.com is going to be hosting pretty much everything that we can host as cleanly as possible. I've just reorganized the website, and like I mentioned before, we might be upgrading to a different server to make it a little more speed friendly for people as they come in, the more the project becomes popular. So yeah, this is pulling PET right now. It's going at the medium speed. So the average pull is going to pull about a gram of filament per minute. That takes about, you know, give or take 25 to 27 minutes, depending on just how much you've cut off the bottom and how much you take from the top. After a 2-liter length pull for a larger soda bottle, the machine should just cut off from the G code. Usually once it happens to get to the top of the neck of the bottle, the cutter will shear it from where it can't go beyond the neck, and it will pretty much pull and just continue pulling. So if it's a 1-liter bottle, you might want to keep an eye on about 15 to 17 minutes when that would pretty much be finishing that bottle strip, as you might want to turn the machine off after it's done pulling that strip so that you're not just letting the machine run. The strand will become semi-loose from the spooler as while it's continuing to spool, so you don't want that filament to get jammed in the motor or anything like that. And yeah, so there's nothing too complex to it once you actually get into start to make your filament. It's very encouraging to actually take a soda bottle and turn it into filament and then 3D print with it. My first time doing it, it really blew my mind, and ultimately it made me really want to get this into just more people's homes and schools and cities. And yeah, so it's really a basic concept that I think we can really start to save our 3D printers from landfills and e-waste stations and get them rethinking what they can use beyond 3D printing, just like a filament creator, letter plotters. I'm really open to hearing more if you do join us over at Recycled3D.xyz with ideas for different things to turn 3D printers into and what they might be able to automate around our house for us. So that's the overall future goal of Recreator 3D, is, you know, branching into Recycle3D.xyz as a brother and sister project and overall community. So we're at about 2 hours and 30 minutes. I got the build finished. I got it pulling. We got at least a couple grams on there now. I'm hungry. We got spammed officially in our comments by a porn site. That was cool. Bound to happen. Thanks, YouTube. Yeah, so everything I post for a video, the first comment's usually, you know, some sort of bot comment. I wish I could clean that stuff up, but I guess that's what the internet is in 2022. Bots. I guess Elon Musk will let us know once he finally, if he ever does move forward with Twitter. Technology, the future. Alright everybody, I'm going to wrap up. We're going to end the stream. Looks like I got 3 viewers, but no one's chatting to me. So, thanks for joining. If you don't see another live stream anytime soon, happy recreating.